Do you have questions about life, existence, different things like that you want answered? Well, you're in luck because today, for 3 easy payments of $29.95, no, I'm kidding. Uh, this is the Existential Stoic podcast, though, and today we're doing another episode on fun philosophical questions to get you thinking, and even answers from a philosopher and a non-philosopher. So
Oh, doctor.
this is doctor. There we go.
And a
This is the
self-help guru,
Existential
I
Stoic
would say.
podcast. Yeah, a health person. This is the Existential
Yeah.
Stoic podcast. I'm Randy. That's Danny. What's going on, Danny?
What's up, Randy?
Yeah, so we had so much fun doing this last week, and it was such a hit episode that we're going to do some more of these because these questions are awesome and they're a lot of fun.
And there's a ton of them.
And
So
there's
we
a
barely
ton of them.
scratched the surface.
Yeah, there's 200 some questions. So we're going to be doing this episode for the next 10
This
months.
is this is season 4.
Right?
Next 10 months.
Awesome. Well, I guess we'll just get right into it. And here's a great one. This one I actually asked my grandfather when I was like 6 years old, uh, in different, terminology. But the question is, how do you know you're not dreaming right now?
Hmm.
And my grandfather, he was a smart dude. And I asked him, I was like, can you prove that you're not a figment of my imagination? And he was like, no, I can't.
That is that's the problem with subjective experience, isn't it? I mean, we're subjects experiencing the world. So no, it's interesting. This has always been an interesting question. A lot of philosophers have dealt with this. There's the very famous one the guy wrote. It was the experience machine, where they imagine basically like Matrix style kind of thing. That gets used a lot to that movie because it's a good example of it. But think about it. If the dream was good enough, or if the virtual reality was good enough, there'd not be any way to know. And we can't really know. We're only aware of what's within our realm of experience, and it's hard to prove concretely that this isn't something other than what it is. Not to mention, too, the world could be in reality very different than how it appears to us, too. So that could also be a way of, like our brains manipulating what we're actually seeing. And we also don't see all of reality because a lot of things are outside of our experience. We don't see certain wavelengths. We don't see, we can only see things of a certain size. So there's lots of stuff that's just unknown.
Hmm. Yeah, plus a lot of enlightened people have said that, this is just a dream. And sometimes it's funny when I get really sleepy at night. So sometimes the last 3 hours of my night, I'm just exhausted. And so things don't consciously make sense anymore. I feel
Yeah.
like a little child walking around. But all of a sudden I'm looking at life and I'm like, hang on, am I dreaming? What's going on here? Because stuff stops making sense the way
Yeah.
that it does normally. And also, if you've ever done any psychedelics, you
Yeah.
realize how we have these frameworks that we think is reality and life and dream, and
Yeah.
all of a sudden you do those and everything shifts. So
Well,
yeah, I don't think.
you realize too, I think when you do psychedelics too, you realize that all of what we're experiencing is so much dependent on the chemical reactions in our brain. And you manipulate those things. I remember reading a study too where they actually I figured how they were able to give memories to mice in a certain way of how to solve a problem like a maze. And it was using they basically figured out the electrical signals or whatever. I'm not sure exactly how they did, but
Aren't they? Are remember? There's nematodes or something that can get the memory of other things by eating it.
really?
Yeah, I'm
That's
pretty sure.
crazy. If that's true, that's amazing. Yeah, the
I
world's crazy,
know.
but that's just it. It's insane. So, it's hard. You can't prove it with certainty. You just got to kind of take it with a grain of salt, I guess.
Yeah, but I don't think we can prove this isn't a dream. Uh, and it's one of those things where very rarely. So I remember I used to mess around with lucid dreaming, and it was the craziest thing
Very
because
cool.
you spend so much time trying to recognize when you're dreaming, and then all of a sudden you do, and it's like a party when you're doing it. But
Yeah, it is fun.
it's
I've done that before too, many
it's a
times.
lot of
Yeah.
work. But the thing is, it's very difficult to bridge that gap between waking life and dreaming life. You have to just do things regularly when you're waking that all of a sudden by accident you do when you're sleeping and you recognize that you're dreaming. But
Yeah.
it could be the same thing with life and death.
Yeah, it could be. Some people have talked about too, death as being coming away from the dream and stuff of life or something like that, that kind of terminology. So, yeah,
Yeah, like the best sleep you get, the most relaxing.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Good question, though.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this then.
All right.
Can predestination and free will coexist?
What the heck is predestination?
Oh, like fate. Think of it like fate. Predestination is like, where
Oh.
you're predestined for a certain place thing. Usually predestination, I should say, is usually in reference to like I think some Christians believe that it's like certain souls are predestined for heaven, so they have no
Mhm.
it's not a matter of your choices, it's already determined, right? So
Uh,
instead of using predestination, let's just say like fate or like causality. Is that can that and free will coexist?
I kind of think, okay, this is, bear with me for a second because
Yeah, go
this is a
ahead.
kind of crazy answer. So I kind of think that both of them exist simultaneously. Like where you are right now, you were predestined to get here because you can't change that. But your future from this moment forward, that can be free will because you have all these choices available and it's up to you to what to do. But no matter where you are, so like if you look now, everything up until now is predestined, but everything from now on is free will. But same person, this is like the crazy quantum mechanic field of it, is that you're 90 years old, you take a look, it turns out that everything up until 90 was predestined. And then after that, everything is free will. So then you have to wonder that time between where you are now and 90, well, that's both free will and predestined. So they both exist simultaneously.
It's a good response. I like that. Yeah.
Thank
I
you.
actually, I think they do too. I think it's a matter of perspective. There was a Voss van Frossen, I think his name is. He wrote an article on the compatibilism between determinism and free will. And basically what he said was like, imagine like you have a choice between A and B, right? And imagine before you choose, unbeknownst to you, somebody puts a chip in your brain that if you choose A, it'll make you choose B. That's the only time it's activated. But you choose B. So you had no choice but to choose B, unbeknownst to you, right? Because you couldn't have chosen A, but you did choose B. So technically, it's still a free choice, even though you didn't have a choice. Does that make sense? It's a very
That is
shorthand
a
version of
tricky
it.
one.
And
That
I
is a
think that's
tricky
kind of
one.
how it works because Nietzsche talked about fate this way too, where he said, like, authenticity is basically getting to a place in your life where you're choosing what's right for you, that you're choosing essentially what you would have chosen anyway, or what you're choosing is what you would have done anyway because it's you. Does that make sense?
Hmm.
So they see it as compatible and consistent, similar to what you're saying too, I think. We're like the past determines who we are, so we are that person we are. There's no changing that, and that we have this like freedom to choose, and in some sense, choosing right is choosing who we are, you know, moving forward, if that makes sense.
Yeah, there's a saying, Dave Ramsey, this financial guy. I remember he once said, he's like, pray like it depends on God and work like it depends on you. And I like that one because
That's a
it's
good
like
one.
you're
Yeah,
yeah, you're taking care of both ends.
yeah. I mean, it's also like a matter of perspective. Like even if it is all determined, like we don't know it, so we just act like it's free, right? And choose.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So the next one, what determines success versus failure?
Success versus
What
failure.
determines success versus failure?
Well, you have to get A's. Yeah.
Clearly, how much money you make.
Yeah, right.
What car, if you're driving a Tesla, uh,
This is honestly a question I wish we thought about more. I know we've done some stuff on it, but like I think our conception of success is so important in how we think of our lives. And I think we have such a messed up one right now because it's all really like the only metric we use is money. Basically determine that, right? Like how much you make at your job, how much you have, how many objects you own, all that stuff, rather than like all the other things that make a life a life. So I think like how you determine success and failure, I don't know. I think that metric depends on the person, and I think it can vary from case to case. Like if I was, for instance, when I was really struggling, just doing anything during a day, I would consider it an achievement, a success, right? Because I was having such a hard time getting things done. I wouldn't do that now because now I feel better and now I'm getting a lot more done. But so I think that you have to kind of determine a metric that works for you, that's reasonable, and that helps you understand the goals you're trying to achieve and puts them into like some context.
yeah, it's also it's also like just a bad way to
Yes.
evaluate things because
Yeah.
it's success and failure are related to a point in time.
Yeah,
Like, for instance, if you want to be good at anything, you're going to have to screw up, make mistakes a whole bunch in order to get there. Like, anything worth being good at is worth being terrible at until you can get there. And so
yeah.
you're going to have a whole bunch of these failures that if you take a snapshot in time and have this giant metric that you're supposed to hit, be like, this is the failure. I'm a failure. Oh, I'm so stupid. Blah, blah, blah. And then, but if you look at it over the long term, if you keep going, you accumulate, you learn from these failures. Eventually, you get to be a quote unquote success. And I would even say that success is way more dangerous than failure because
Yeah.
success breeds complacency, it breeds egotism, all these negative qualities that you really don't want. That's like the dangerous side.
No, and you're right too. Like every time, if you think back to any time you're successful, you just basically called all the times you failed in that process learning. So it's just a matter of perspective, right? So I think like that's the other thing, because the only times we succeed is when we fail a bunch. We always fail in the process. So yeah, I think you're right, and I think also your point about the success being like toxic like that is true. I think it gives us a really bad, you know, just a lot of negative things come with it, and it can also lead to us kind of like leveling off because we think we're done. Like we act like it's like finished when nothing is. We're still alive, so we have to keep going.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
While I was talking, I didn't think about my other one. Hold on.
Yeah. Well, while you're talking about it,
Okay.
because it's kind of like the MC Hammer versus Vanilla Ice type of thing. Like MC Hammer had two songs, and one of them being the Ninja Turtle rap. Or no, that was Vanilla Ice. MC
That was
Hammer had one
really
song. Vanilla Ice had maybe a couple songs, but I don't know where I'm going with this. Did you find
That's
one yet?
okay. Uh, hold on. Yeah, sorry. Um, here's a good one. This is an interesting one that I think people do struggle with sometimes. Is is it possible to make moral judgments without religion?
Mm, no, you need religion. I mean, this is kind of absurd. Like the thing that irks me is that religion's messed up so freaking bad.
Mhm.
Like so bad when they had people like messing with little boys and they didn't
That
just
wasn't a good time. No.
and they literally didn't just flay and skin those people alive publicly.
Yeah.
Like when that happened, that was the nail in the coffin for religion. They've been messing up for a long time, but that was kind of the nail in the coffin for it. And it's funny because I look back, like I read the Bible, and one of the things is like religion's been messing up since the beginning of time.
Yeah.
Like it's
Yeah.
not it's
Well, it's
not anything
people.
new. Yeah. Like even when Jesus was around, he would talk about all like I think it was the Sanhedrin or whoever, or I don't know, all these guys who basically they were just in religion because they became the most popular person by doing it. And it's just like
Even his
I
own
did
disciples screwed up time and time again.
yeah.
Like, if you
Yeah,
look at
that
it,
too.
it's funny. Well, here's the thing. It's funny, like, it's like people make this mistake all the time where religion is not morality. It might endorse a specific view of morality, but it's not morality. Those are two distinct things. And so I think it's totally possible to be moral without religion. Religion can help people, I think, if correct. But, a big problem with that too is then you think you have moral authorities. So you end up doing things without you actually internalizing it or thinking about it. Because I think
Hmm.
morality has to come from you. It can't come from an external source that you're, conforming to, because then you're not really doing it. You're doing
Well,
it because you're afraid of consequences.
it's like the distinction between being righteous and self-righteous.
Yeah.
And it's like a very fine distinction, but like religious people err on the side of self-righteous all the
Yeah.
time. They're like, I'm a crusader, blah. And
Yeah.
it's like, okay, why don't you just act good? Like, I mean, this is the thing about, I think, leadership in general is most people think they want just like this celebrity of leadership. But I heard it said a while ago where like the best leader, when they're done doing their job, the people will think they did it themselves. It's like lead
Yeah.
by example and just shut up. But a lot of people with religion, they start crusading for all this stuff that like, yeah, it's great, but you don't, I mean, a man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. And
Yeah.
so you're not going to do anything by just crusading.
Well, it also leads to is a lot of virtue signaling too, where something bad happens, everybody jumps online to say, "Oh, we care," but they don't really care. They're not doing anything.
Thoughts and prayers.
Yeah, exactly, right? They're not doing anything to actually help. They're just getting attention because they feel like they should or they feel like they ought to. Yeah. Anyway,
Dude, don't get me started with online
I know. I know.
BS. BS. Yeah. Okay. I got another one. Should citizens obey unjust laws? Oh,
Oh,
this is yeah. Should if you think that a law is unjust, should you still follow it?
well, I think this is actually, if you look back in history, like the major events where we've tried to change laws is because we think they are unjust or immoral. Morality is usually the metric on which we confront the law, right, and say that it's wrong. So when like things are being applied unfairly to like one group versus another, that's oftentimes if you look at like the civil rights movement was a good example of that. So I actually don't think we should. I think if laws are unjust, I don't think we should, well, let me rephrase that. I think we should take steps to try and change them
Mm-hmm.
to make them correct or to make them better. But it's hard because, we live in a system that has flaws. So, laws are used for a lot of reasons. And I don't think laws are always just. They're definitely not always moral because they don't have anything to do with morality necessarily. And a lot of times they're self-interested. So, it is a problem.
Yeah, these things frustrate the heck out of me.
I know.
Like laws and taxes. They're like two things that everybody has to deal with, but they're things that are very, very difficult to deal with yourself.
Yeah.
Because I mean, the book of tax code is like this freaking big. And
Yeah,
then
it's huge.
you're supposed to be aware of every law that applies to you. And it's
I
like,
know.
where can you find a list of every law that applies to you? How are you supposed to be? And it's like, if you go to court, you can't represent yourself because you're just going to go to prison. You have to hire a
Yeah.
lawyer who's basically just a freaking criminal, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So,
No, absolutely. Not to
because
mention
like,
too, a
how
lot.
can you sleep at night when you represent somebody who clearly did it? Like, I just
Yeah.
don't get that stuff.
Well, it's crazy too because like the other thing is like a lot of laws too have been literally designed or practiced or applied in ways where they intentionally target certain groups, peoples, etc. And so it's like, how can you follow a system like that when it's intentionally built to give some people a leg up and others a leg down, or like, look at like the, lobbying. Lobbying is intentionally trying to change the law so that it benefits certain groups. I mean, that's insane. Those laws are clearly not fair and clearly not
Mm-hmm.
right if all you're looking for is self-interested benefit. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but so I guess for me answering the question, should you obey laws if you think they're not just? I mean, yes, you probably should. Like you know how
Oh,
there's
oh, they
like,
should. Yeah, 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 yeah.
you know how there's like the whole like your chaotic, lawful, good or evil, like or neutral from there's this so basically like you can go towards the more chaos or more lawful stuff. You can go towards more good or more evil. So anyways, I'm more of the lawful, even though it irks the heck out of me that something
Well,
like I mean taxes. I every year pay the government a ton of
I
money.
think I think
And
it
it's
also,
just
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and where does it go? I think it's
I'm
also
I'm
depends on the,
totally I totally don't think that taxes are just at all, and yet I follow this law.
well, I think also depends on the law too, right? Because like laws like use civil rights again, right? Laws that intentionally were aimed at certain groups. I don't think they sh I think you have to work against it in order to change it, right? So I think sometimes if the laws are unjust enough, we have to disobey them to some extent in order to make them change, right? Other times I think though, yeah, you're better off just following them because it's like, you're one person.
Or like how about Muhammad Ali not going to Vietnam? You know, they had a draft, there was a law, he didn't go. He didn't believe it. I mean, I
Yeah,
think that was a great opinion on his choice. So I
yeah,
would say
it
no, it
was.
depends on the situation, I guess.
It does. It's very, yeah, it's a tough one though. That is a tough one.
Mm-hmm.
Um, oh, here's an interesting question. Um,
Mm-hmm.
should we judge acts based on their outcomes alone? So I guess another way to
Yeah,
look at
the
that.
end justifies the means.
Yeah,
Totally.
always, always.
Machiavelli would agree.
Or I
Yeah.
guess more broadly,
Uh,
like, what do you think? How should we evaluate actions? That might be an easy way to say it.
I'm a big fan of uh Well, so like the outcomes are always out of your control.
Yeah.
So like I I think that what is within your control, like the actual actions, are more worthwhile to evaluate. But then again, there's this whole thing of like someone with like I had good intentions, but
Yeah.
and it's like that thing. It's like okay, but maybe you were going about it the wrong way at the same time. So like yeah,
Well, no, what you're saying I think is good. Where
depends.
like our so like if you're looking at it from an intention standpoint, consequences are valuable to inform, those choices that you did make. It's like if I intend to do something good, but it comes out bad, well, I should learn from that, right? I should learn that, okay, even if my heart might have been in the right place or my intent was in the right place, clearly that wasn't the right way to go about it, right? So I think consequences should weigh in that sense where like they can help us evaluate after the fact the choices that we made and be useful moving forward,
Mm-hmm.
but
Yeah,
not
I think
necessarily the only thing. Because sometimes, too, like, like telling the truth to somebody might make them upset, but that also might be important information to have. So like you can't always look at consequences.
yeah, that's a difficult one. Like I look at it a lot more in terms of trying to achieve certain results that you want in situations. In that, I always just look at the actions and I say the results will come on their own accord. Because
Good way
I
to look
believe
at it.
like if you plant enough seeds, eventually you'll reap what you sow. But
I really like
and
looking at it
I
too in terms of character, right? Like who am I and what kind of actions like actually represent me, in that sense. I think that's also a good way to look at it because then you're focused not on outcomes, but on, the person you are and the person you become rather.
that's a good one. Yeah, nice. Uh, uh, how about okay, this is a funny one. Uh, are human rights and entitlement the same thing?
Yeah, right is an entitlement. I mean, it's like by definition, a right is an entitlement to something. Is it not? I mean, I guess it depends. Like, do they mean like, I don't know what they mean because a right is an entitlement to something. I don't understand what they mean.
Well, I was just thinking about these like middle class kids who are like, I should have a freaking Tesla in high school because everybody else has one. And I'm thinking that like entitled.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, right is an entitlement to something, but yeah, like like self or entitled in that sense is a little different. I mean, it's
Yeah.
interesting because like another interesting question too about rights are like, are rights something that we have or are they something that we gain, like a privilege? Like, do you have to earn them, or should they be earned, or should they just be granted without any question?
Mm. Yeah. Well, this is a tricky one because I think that it's important to have human rights, but I absolutely 100% believe that we have zero rights by like just by being alive. Like the only right we have by being alive is death. That's literally the only
Yeah.
right that we have because that's the only thing that's guaranteed. Everything else is literally a privilege on top of that.
Well, it's a human construct. I mean, rights are a human construct, right? And I think, like you said, like I think having an idea of human rights is a good idea because it's a guide. It can help us understand, like, are we doing things that are way outside the realm of like what would be acceptable or not? But I think on an individual level, two people should have to like also earn them to a certain extent in the sense that like if you're not acting well towards others, do you really shouldn't have all those rights either then because you're not doing the same to others. You're not treating them the same way. So why bother?
Yeah. I think like I actually this is an interesting question with the words that they chose because I actually think that human rights bred this culture of entitlement. Like right now we're in this culture of entitlement where people are like, I should have this, and they should do this for me, and I should have this, and this should be guaranteed.
Wearing a
Blah, blah.
mask is taking away my freedom.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. People are so freaking entitled, they forget how lucky
Yeah.
they are to have the human rights that they have.
And they also forget about how their actions influence the rest of the community entirely. They don't think about that either. And I think you're right. Like, I think that entitlement side of it is dangerous because it leads to sort of only thinking about yourself and being narcissistic rather than thinking about how your actions also influence everyone else.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, your
Okay. So it's a
question.
slightly better question than I thought it was going to be. Is it your question or mine? It's yours.
I'll do another one.
I thought I just did the right one. Didn't I just ask that, or did you?
Okay, Danny,
Okay,
this is a
sorry.
question. What makes someone fall in love? I really want to know.
I really, really want to know. I don't know. It's tough. I think it's like, I think it's got to be different for every people, right? I mean, it's part of it's going to be physicality, part of it's going to be relationship building, forming a good relationship with people and friendship. I always think that becoming friends with people first is better because you get to know them on different terms than a romantic relationship and get to kind of see them differently. And that gives you a way to understand them more as a person. So I think that's helpful.
Mm, yeah, I think there's definitely a ton of different factors that go into it.
Oh, yeah.
I like what you said there with being friends first, because the longer that you spend together before you get married, the greater the chance of success for the marriage,
Yeah,
which is
absolutely.
yeah. And but also like I'm so interested in like the chemical thing because
Oh, yeah.
there's definitely like there's some people that you see them, you smell them, whatever it is, and it just like does something in your brain.
Oh,
And
yeah, there's definitely
it's
something there.
it's freaking nuts. And the coolest thing is that it's different for everybody. Like
Yeah, yeah,
I love when I see a girl and I'm just like, oh my God, look at her. And my friend's like, ew. Like that's the
yeah.
coolest thing for me because then I'm like, well, awesome, no competition whatsoever. And it's just like reminds me of different strokes for different folks.
Yeah, no, everybody is different. That is funny though too. It is funny how that works, where everybody is attracted to something different and like wants something different. But I think like,
Every
yeah,
trash can has a lid.
yeah, right. That's a good way to look at it. It's funny though. It is. Like I don't know, I think it's hard too because I think a lot of times when we're looking for it, we aren't ourselves. We put on airs, and then that causes problems as well. So I think like I do think like trying to be ourselves and trying to be friends first is very helpful. But yeah, I don't know what the chemical stuff is, but I'm sure that there's got to be something there.
Oh yeah.
Definitely.
Dude, I've been reading a lot of Shakespeare recently, and I love reading Shakespeare because like these guys fall head over heels in love from just they literally like see a girl for the first time and they're like, this is it.
That's
I
it.
will murder anybody
And myself.
who says yeah, exactly. It's like the most drastic love thing ever. And then like which one was it? It was much I think like Much Ado About Nothing, where the dude literally fell head over heels in love, and then these other guys lied to him and said that she wasn't a virgin, and all of a sudden he's like cursing her and like she and saying the worst stuff about her, and then he finds out that's not true, and all of a sudden he's head over heels in love again. It's just
It's
like
like absurd.
he's like the most drastic drama queen ever, just flipping back and forth.
They totally are though. They're so dramatic. Uh, what was it? Oh, has modern technology made us more or less human? Or
Less.
humane? I'm sorry, it was humane.
Oh, less. I would okay, so I'm going to answer the first question first. I think modern technology has made us less human to begin with. If you want to know why, great book called Sapiens talks about what it was like to be a human. We've lost like everything that it was to be human. However, I
But
think
why
that
is that?
eventually,
But why does that define what a human is, though? Because a human is also something that adapts. If we
but
went by that definition, we would never have changed. We would have stayed
well,
monkeys.
that's what I'm getting to, is
Okay.
that we are adapting, but we adapt pretty slowly.
Yes.
Like I think part of this adaptation is all the anxiety we see in the world, all the depression we see in the world,
Yeah.
all the obesity we see in the world. Like all of these things are part of the adaptation, but it takes a long freaking time, and it's going to end up being like whoever breeds more, whatever. That's those are the things that are going to be passed on. I think eventually we'll find people that are somewhat resistant to the downsides of technology. Like the people who continue and keep breeding will be the people who don't get depressed from it, the people who don't get all these like diseases of affluence from it.
No,
So
that's true though. And we're very good at like coming up with inventions, but these things that drastically change our world, they also take a lot of time for us to adjust to. And I think you're right. Like that will happen over time where, the people that survive, the people that breed will be the ones that probably dealt with it the best way or in a healthy way, because that's just how we are. So it's interesting though, because like the concept of human is so flexible and plastic, I guess, that it makes it hard to even define it, you know?
Dude, and it's crazy how much things have. Okay, so like I'm reading this book on Alaska right now, and it was talking about the gold rush
But
in the
that's a big book, isn't
1800s.
it?
Oh, dude, it's like 30 some hours.
Yeah.
And so it's talking about the gold rush in the 1800s. And I was like, hang on, that was 200 years ago, the
Yeah.
gold rush? Like, you're kidding me. When like you look at the whole span of humanity and then the gold rush, which I think is like ancient history, was
Yeah.
200 years ago.
Dude, I do that all the
And
time with American history though, where I'm like even World War One was in like it was like barely 100 years ago. Like it's
yeah,
crazy. I think of that
yeah,
as so much longer. It's really weird. Yeah.
yeah. So like the amount of change just gone because up until that time, we pretty much lived outside. We
Yeah.
pretty much didn't have clocks and schedules and alarm clocks and all this
No
different stuff.
airplanes, no cars, no manufacturing. No,
We
no.
were bored all the freaking time. Like people die. The average life expectancy was 30. So
Yeah.
like all these things changed very, very drastically. And while we're trying to catch up with it, it's it's such a quick change. Humans don't evolve that quickly.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. Yeah, it's
So what were you
interesting.
going to say?
Oh no, I just yeah, I agree with what you're saying. I think it is interesting. And like whether I think on the humane side, I don't know. It's interesting because technology's given us access to things that could have made. I think technology gives us access to stuff that could help a lot, but the problem is how it's used, right? And what we pay attention to. We tend to see more negative stuff now, more, I think, more bad examples of society, and that can make us more inhumane because we care less about those people because we see that and then we judge them. So I think like having a broader, so maybe that'll change with time, as we start to adjust to these things over time, who knows? But I think it can have both positive and negative effects depending on its usage, obviously.
Yeah, it's funny because they thought technology was going to give us like a life of luck
Yeah.
of like freedom, of leisure. They thought that I forget exactly what the statistics were, but they thought by the early 2000s people were going to be working about like 14 hours a
Well,
week
that was
total.
always the dream, right? Was you invent these things to do the things you don't want to do, to free up your time to do other stuff, but all it does is end up binding us to more different tasks, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah, I mean, remember we were talking about how Henry Ford invented the whatever the line so that people could spend more time enjoying nature.
Yeah.
It's
And
like
then
this
they
is
just
it.
destroyed nature.
Yeah. But as for humane, I think technology makes us a lot less humane. Like people are freaking nasty on technology. Like nasty, like they would never be in real life. They're nasty
Yeah.
on technology.
That
And
anonymity, gives them a chance to be, totally nasty. Yeah.
yeah, and even like, some people will say, but now I can give my thoughts and prayers to people when there's and like after I punch that person in the mouth, it's
Yeah,
like
right.
that doesn't help at all. It doesn't. And
No.
yeah, so
I wonder if it makes us more disconnected because viewing things through a screen gives them that sense in which it's not connected to you. You're watching something, it's voyeuristic.
mhm.
So there's that
Dude,
separation.
it's literally addictive. Like one thing that I did, I was telling you this about this a while ago, is I changed my screen so it's just grayscale. It's black and white. And like I noticed a significant difference. Like when every once in a while I'll do something where like I need to see a color on my phone. And so I'll turn that off. And literally it looks like candy. It is
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
freaking addictive as heck. And it's just like you end up getting addicted to this stuff because that's what it's designed to do. Because they're like, hey, money's
Right.
more important than anything else. Why
Not even,
let's just get
it's not
people
even that
addicted to
too.
their
Even
phones.
when we design things, we want to make them appealing, right? Whether we know it or not, we want to make them appealing. And screens can be very appealing because they can flash all kinds of colors and there's sound, it can be very appealing to our senses because it overwhelms,
It's super freaking saturated. Like I notice
Yeah.
this all the time now is I see other people taking pictures and I look on their phone and their phone is way more saturated than the actual nature. And it's
Yes.
just like this is a crazy disparity because this little phone draws your eye more than reality.
I mean, that's one of the things, like, it's funny because when I use my regular camera to take pictures, I like to try and get pictures that like are closer to like what I'm actually looking at, you know? And it's funny because as technology's improved, I notice more and more people are favoring photos online that are more manipulated in post-production so that they have that saturation, those contrasts that like are not real. And it's fine, it's whatever, but like it does change it a lot. It makes us, look for more like digital things rather than real things.
Yeah, there was a photography book I used to have called Black and White Photography that was like a really nice book of photos that had high contrast, but it was like things that you found out in nature of blacks and whites and
Yeah.
grayscales and different
Well, it's
stuff
neat
like
because you
that.
can change, you can make things like you can give a different perspective on something just by contrast and stuff like that. You're not changing the image, but you're giving a perspective on it, right? But then the digital age has changed things dramatically in that respect, I think. It definitely has.
Hmm.
Things look more like CGI, than they do like
Oh my gosh, yeah. Oh, here's an interesting one.
Okay.
Since you're like the love guru, do all human beings want to be loved?
We loved.
Do all human beings want to be loved?
I would say yes. I think we all do want to be like I think I don't know, I kind of do think that we have a natural need for community, obviously. I mean, we seem to think it's weird when somebody goes like off into nature by themselves and just lives alone forever. That seems odd to us. And even if we do like our personal space, right? We want to have community, and we also want people around us that we know. There's because love it like it's that connection that's different from everyone else, right? Like you can rely on those people. You know those people are part of your life in a certain way. So I think it's a way to share our life experiences with. So I think yeah, we absolutely do.
Mm. Yeah, do all people, I would say, uh, do all human beings want to be loved? You know, initially, I would say initially when they pop out of the womb, I would say yes. But then stuff happens and people change and things whatever and stuff gets twisted and like your neurology changes based on what happens to you. And I would say that like as some people may not. Like it may be repulsive to some people as they
It's
I think
possible.
initially yes, because like they had all that stuff with the babies that I forget what syndrome it was, where like the babies would die if they didn't get held when they
Yeah,
were
they will
like
absolutely. Yeah.
it's a requirement for life. But eventually it can shift, and I think some like it's not these people's fault, but like stuff can get twisted, and people could eventually not want love.
That can happen, I guess. Yeah, I mean, there's always outliers. That's the difficulty, right? But I
Hitler.
think we definitely, huh? What did you say?
No, he still wanted love too.
Yeah,
Yeah, everybody wants love.
you would think, right?
I
Uh,
I have a theory that like we could do away with war pretty much everywhere if guys just were getting laid often enough. Who's gonna
think
want
that's
to go to
something
war and kill somebody if they just got laid?
if people just had love in
Nobody.
their lives. You just need
Yeah,
love in your
nobody.
lives. That's all
Yeah.
you need.
Mhm.
Right, that's a
Good
funny
question.
one.
Good
Sorry,
question. We'll
I
get
just
we'll
reading
each
one.
do a couple more.
All right, we'll do a couple more. How do I know what's true?
Ooh, yeah, that's an interesting one because the world really only tells you about your own nervous system. It
Yeah,
really only tells you what because like your experience of the world depends on what you see, which is based on your eyes, depends on what you hear, based on your ears, your brain, like all this different stuff. And how do I know it's really interesting because when I read the autobiography of Malcolm X, it drove me nuts
yeah,
that he
yeah. I
was
remember you
looking
saying that.
for the one universal truth that was the same for every single person. And
Doesn't
he was
exist.
going to find the truth that was true for everybody. And he was right. And like that bothered the heck out of me because it's like, yes, there are universal truths, sure. But like to think that it's going to be exactly the same for you and for everybody else, that's got to be crazy.
I mean,
And
that's the definition of a universal truth, though, by the way.
yeah, but like,
No, I know, I
I
know.
mean, well, so like, okay, so here's the thing. Okay, we're looking at universal truths. So like, everybody loves to quote quantum mechanics and different stuff like that. But it's like, okay, Universal truth. Light acts as a wave. True. Okay. Light acts as a particle. True. How can two things that are completely opposite be true simultaneously at the same time? And it's like, don't know, but they are. And so it's like this whole thing of like one universal truth, like universal truth. Light acts as, I don't know. And
No, I get what you're saying. Like, it's okay. So I would say that,
it's okay.
yeah, it's okay. Don't
Thanks,
worry about it.
Danny. I feel
You're fine.
better.
I don't think it matters. I don't, well, okay. I mean, I fall on different side. I don't think there is truth, strictly speaking. I think we have perspective, I can know things from my standpoint and, understand that things are a construct. Like, I'm very much influenced by being raised in the United States. I'm very much influenced in how I see the world from, my experiences, my history, all of that. So like for sure, like, might have certain truths for me, but I think they depend on your perspective wholly. And I don't think there is any like truth beyond that. Even the sciences and stuff are constructed up to a point, and they give us a way of interpreting reality. So everything comes down to is an interpretation from a specific standpoint. So I don't really necessarily believe in like absolute truths or anything like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's depend. You have to put yourself in the other person's shoes.
Yeah. Well, I think it's also good to think that way too, because it keeps you open and flexible, and rather than dogmatic and rigid in your thinking, which is much better
Mm-hmm.
to be open because it's that you stay curious and you're also willing to change your views if you come upon evidence that suggests otherwise.
Yeah, because how often does your opinion change in life? I mean, like things that you
Yeah.
knew to be true at one point are no longer. Like there was a long time where I thought that no carb diet was the way to go. Yeah, a long freaking, like
I've
a
never
long
thought that.
time,
I like carbs.
right? Yeah, a long freaking time, and then I realized that it wasn't. So yeah,
I mean, also, I
uh,
know that, I mean, I am always right. And so,
yeah,
uh,
exactly.
yeah.
Ooh, here we go. This is my last one.
All right.
Is stealing ever permissible? Is stealing ever permissible?
Okay. I'm going to say
I
this.
think the statute of limitations
Yeah, right.
is long enough on it.
No, I was going to say, I don't know. Okay. So that question I think is funny because, the way it's phrased, it's saying like, is it ever morally right to steal, right? Or is it ever justified in that sense? And I think sometimes, like, it might just be the case that sometimes morality doesn't apply, that there's other things that are more important. Let me give you an example. If you're starving and have no money, and the only way to eat is to say maybe steal from somewhere, I think that then it's not an issue of permissibility, it's an issue of survival, right? So I think there is a difference there that like maybe that's not the right way to frame the question, that sometimes other things will trump morality, right? Which makes it in a sense permissible under certain conditions, maybe if you want to think of it that way. But does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
dude, it's a freaking gray area. Like I love that
Yeah.
example that you gave with the whole eating because I used to love going dumpster diving, especially behind Trader Joe's, because literally stuff that expired that day would be out there in the dumpsters. And you could
Yeah.
find like you could literally go home with hundreds of dollars of stuff that expired that day. And anybody who knows anything about food knows that like that date that they give you, stuff, I mean, maybe milk, can expire on
Not
that
even.
day.
Do you know there's
But
different days in different states because they all set those restrictions, so it's totally like in a sense arbitrary too.
yeah, but like a lot of this stuff is you have a very big window around that. And so like
Yeah,
so
just
for
because they
instance,
can't sell it, why isn't it used?
right. And it's like technically if they have a little fence thing around their garbage can, you're stealing because you're breaking and entering
Yes, you are,
to
yeah.
go into the trash can. But it's like, okay, fine. So you're breaking and entering. How about like the squirrel that like hops in there and eats that stuff? Is that guy stealing too? Is he breaking the law too? And it's like, well, no, because laws don't apply to squirrels. And it's like, so this is a human law that prevents me from doing the same thing that squirrels. It's a gray area to me.
You know what I never understood? It is a gray area. And I never understood about too, all the places that throw food out like that because of expiration dates. And that food's not bad. I don't never understood why we don't. I get why we don't donate it because they're afraid if something happens, they'll get sued or whatever, or
Yeah.
it'll hurt their market. But like, you know, there's I don't know, it's just ridiculous.
Dude, I remember one day we went there and had like literally filled up an entire car with like there was so much there that it was just absurd.
Because
So,
our whole society is built around waste, though. You have to have more than you're going to need to sell it, and so they're just constantly throwing stuff out that's still good. It's insane. Yeah,
mhm,
so yeah, I think it is a gray area though, and
mhm.
they clearly didn't
But
want it.
I
So
would say still, is stealing ever? I try not to steal because I know that like when I steal, I don't feel good.
yeah,
There are certain gray areas. Like I would still go take food from Trader Joe's. Okay, I don't look at that as stealing because they threw the damn stuff out. Like who
yeah,
cares? Yeah, but like, and I'm taking the risk by eating food that is expired.
yeah.
But other other stealing, it doesn't make me feel good. Like when I steal something from somebody and then I see them missing it and they don't, and they like, I see the pain that I've caused them. I don't feel good. So for me, like it's just not worth it.
No, I think too when there's a distinction between like survival, like if you need food to eat, like if you're starving and the only way to get food is to steal it, that's one thing. But like if you're just stealing a watch because you think it's nice or something, that's totally different. That's like unnecessary. So I think it's also a scale of, how desperate is your situation and how relevant is this thing to helping survival for now or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Good one.
Interesting question though. Should we
Do
do
you have
one
any
more?
other questions? Yeah, sure. Last question. No pressure.
Thanks. Well, I'm gonna ask you this just 'cause I'm curious. What determines the difference between fact and fiction?
Fact and fiction. Hmm. Damn. You know, that's a great one because I don't know. It's it's kind of like we like any history book
It's
is
fiction.
so like for instance, okay, we have these US history books that we learned from in America. I guarantee they're probably different from a Chinese history book or a Russian history book or
Just think of the way we
Canadian
represent.
history
Well,
book.
think about the way
Mhm.
anybody represents like the founding fathers in America, how we represent them in history books. They come across as really good people. Like we leave a lot of their lives just out into the side, you know? And it's like, because history, you're always getting a glance at something, and somebody always has an intent or story they're trying to tell. So it's always going to be like manipulated on that
Oh,
line.
dude, okay, so another thing that I learned in this Alaska book. So like you know how there's tension between Russia and America right
Let's
now.
just do an episode on Alaska just from that book.
I know, right? It's a great like it's crazy because I'm only a third of the way through it. Feel like I've been reading it forever. I've learned so much stuff. But like Russia was one of the few countries that actually uh early on when there was the Civil War in America, they came in and they defended the shores of America from England and France invading and taking America. Like
Really?
Russia literally saved the United States. The only reason the United States is still here is because Russia parked their all their naval ships down across the coast and they just stopped anyone from coming in and taking America while we were fighting amongst
What, along
ourselves.
the West Coast, you mean?
No, the East Coast.
Oh, really? Really?
Yeah.
I had no idea they
Yeah.
did that. Huh.
Yeah. I know. I just learned that from this book. And I'm like, if anybody knew this stuff, I think the tensions would go away because clearly there's just something going
Well,
on right now where we're having like brotherly and sisterly squabbles because clearly we owe our whole country to them.
that's the funny thing though, right? Is that, I mean, any story from the past is always told under a certain light. And with all these, like, they leave things out on purpose because of political tensions and stuff. They don't want to give a nod to somebody because, they're in fight with them right now. It's like, and that's the problem, right? Like fact and fiction are difficult because I think we tell stories, we create meaning. So nothing is exactly as it is, We don't even know the world as it really is. We only know it from a human perspective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, so is that your answer?
Yeah, sort of. Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Right.
No. So
Yeah.
no, you can't tell the
Yeah.
difference. Sometimes you can. I mean, but not always. It's hard.
Yeah. It's difficult because I mean, gosh, people look at the news for facts. Like,
Oh gosh.
you know,
I know.
especially older generation, like they grew up where they could trust the news, and now I don't. I don't. I would. I. the news would be the last place that I would go to find
Yeah.
something that's truthful.
Well, do you know what's funny? I was thinking about that the other day, like, because I was talking to my dad, and like, I remember like when I was younger, and the news. Remember the news was on for like a half hour in the morning, half hour at night,
Hmm.
and most of it was pretty factual because they didn't spend a lot of time on stuff. They spent a few minutes on each story, and they would just tell you like core facts of these big issues, right?
And it
But once they
wasn't
went to
opinion, it wasn't
yes,
outrage porn, it wasn't like, yeah.
but once they went to that 24-hour schedule, they had to fill time, and everything started to become very skewed by a certain perspective or certain ideas in order to get that audience. And so, yeah, it's become garbage. Whereas before, I think before there was a little bit more integrity in it. They might not have, there might have always been perspectives to it because it's people telling stories, of course, but like it was better. I think now it's gotten just way more to the point where it's barely even like it's barely even giving you any information about the issues at all.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there you have it. Some more
Don't
thought-provoking
trust
philosophical
anything.
questions. I know. Don't trust. I mean, that's basically the answer. Don't trust anyone. You can't. And
Yeah,
yeah. So
there you
if
go.
you enjoyed the episode, like, share, subscribe, give us a good review. Also, there's if you're looking for something to fill some time, there's a survey down in the show notes or the description. This is the Existential Stoic podcast. I'm Randy. That's Danny. I'll see you later, Danny.
Later, Randy.